Welcome to Backboard Banter on the board with your hosts, Matt Middleton and Kevin Rayner, where the banter's as ferocious as that Croatia performance against Canada, man. Oh, big sad, eh?
You know, we came out swinging to this World Cup. Fortunately, we made some comments, and Croatia decided that they didn't like those comments, and a 4-1 loss is the result, sadly.
Hey, man, we got the first goal off the hop, like a minute in. It was beautiful, beautiful header, but yeah, I don't remember which Croatian player said it, but yeah, we really saw who effed who up. That's for sure.
Yeah, that
Ugh.
Davies goal was gorgeous. It was exactly what we wanted. And, I was out skiing, so I didn't get to watch the match, but, Matt was telling me that the boys just kind of parked the bus after that. They got that goal. They thought that they were on top, they were going to belong, and the score just kept going the other way.
Yeah, I definitely saw them just take their foot off the gas. They thought, we didn't beat Belgium, but we beat them in terms of play. We deserve to be here. We've already got the 1-0 lead. We're probably going to win 2-0, 3-0, and that's just not the case, especially when, you're at the biggest tournament in the world, the biggest sporting event in the world, and every country wants it, every team wants it. So you have to come out hungry, and we just didn't play hungry for the rest of the game after that. So
Right?
real
I
sad.
mean, my buddy Cole was like, "Oh, it's going to be a high-scoring game after that first goal went in 2 minutes in," and I was like, "Yeah, hopefully, but not the hope that I was looking for with 4-1, that's for sure." But we were out. We knew we were out after that, and we went into the Morocco game yesterday. With a chip on our shoulder, hoping to at least get a point, do something for the boys, and they came close. A 2-1 loss. Right,
Oh,
Ada, I can't pronounce his name, had a great cross for that own goal to start. And man, I really thought that Hutchinson header in like the 80th or 67th minute was going in and it was going to be beautiful for the guy, but it just didn't happen and we took another L sadly.
is what it is, man. I'm good to move on from the World Cup. Let's, return to the takes. You may have been bringing the curse to the Kings. You said they're going to finish above a 500 record. They're going to make the playoffs. They were 1-2 since you made that prediction. Not the best start.
I mean, it's the Kings, right? Most people are expecting an 0-3 week per usual in the past, so it's positives a little bit, but yeah.
Bro,
I mean, hopefully we can see them continue this season's trend, which is being positive and not continuing that we're expecting losses that we've seen in the past 15 years from this team.
hey, man, I think honestly they're going to break that streak, and there's going to be a team that has players that have actually played against the Sacramento Kings come playoff time this year. I think they're going to do it. Light the beam, man. Just light the beam. They're there.
Right? Yeah, we getting excited for Sacramento, and they've looked legit, right? Like it's a roller coaster of a season. That's how it is. But also with a team like this that has been so irrelevant and is now back to somewhat relevancy, you're gonna have a roller coaster ride. You're gonna have your ups and downs in the season. And when you think about the table and the way that everyone kind of stands, all it takes is one good win streak to be back into like the top six in either conference, really. So as long as they stay around, they'll be okay.
Hey, man, I mean, look at those Lakers. Even they're, somewhat back into contention. So,
Crazy.
and anything's possible this year. That's what we love. And you know what, man, my take didn't pan out, but a 2-1 week for the Raptors instead of an 0-3 week is music to my ears anytime we talk about it, even when I'm predicting the opposite. So, hey, I'll take it every day of the week.
One of these days the curse is gonna just wake up to your reverse tactics and it's gonna slap you across the face one of these days. But hey, until that happens, we'll take the positivity and it was a pretty positive week for the Raptors. It started off with that Mavericks game where OG went absolutely toe to toe with Doncic, the current MVP frontrunner. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it was pretty awesome to see OG have one of those nights. And I mean, Nurse was talking him up after. OG seemed pretty happy. It was what we needed as a team to start the week.
Dude, it was unbelievable how good OG Anunoby was in that game. He locked up Luka, the MVP Doncic, man. I mean, yes, Luka I think was still efficient, like 8 of 15, but holding
It's
him
Luca.
to only 15 shot attempts is crazy, right? Like to only have him feel comfortable enough to attempt that many just shows you how smothering OG was all night. He outproduced him 26 9 and 2 to 24 7 and 9. Like it was just a masterclass by my boy OG. Fred Van Vliet and Chris Boucher kicking it in, to make sure that we round out there. We have the three players, and we did that, man, without Achua, without Porter Jr., without Siakam, without Scotty, without Benton, like shorthanded, and we still took it to the Mavs.
Well,
Gotta love that, man.
and
Gotta
this
love it.
this almost is a problem for the Mavs more than it is a solution for any other team. Because like you look at what the Detroit Pistons did without Cade last night, they beat Luka and the Mavs, and they did it by making sure that Luka was constantly doubled. If anyone who's paying attention to the NBA right now, you know how you beat the Mavericks? You get the ball out of Luka Doncic's hand. You make anybody else do it. And the fact that he's still playing at the level that he is and putting up the number that he's doing when every single night the teams want to take him down, it's amazing.
Well, like this is kind of what annoys me about the MVP conversation is that a lot of people are going to be like, his team isn't high enough in the standings, they don't win enough, they're empty stats, they're not contributing to winning basketball. He is their sole opportunity to win games in the NBA. It is Luka has to put on a magical performance or bust, man. I like Christian Wood. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. We've been talking them up a lot on this show and just trying to kind of push them, but at the end of the day, they're probably what? The fourth or fifth best option on a true championship caliber team. So they're still missing option 2 and option 3. Like it is just a sad state of affairs in Dallas right now. And it kind of reminds me of the whole Dirk Nowitzki tenure. You know, they had a generational talent for 20 plus years and could just never put the pieces around him. They
True.
only did it once. Is Luka gonna have a similar career? And that just makes me so sad, man, because this guy's too special to have that kind of career.
Right? And like, will the question be, is Luca gonna take less money so the Mavs can give Chandler Parsons more money? Like, the question comes down to what they should
Chandler
do.
Parsons.
That's what they did, man. Dirk took a pay cut and they gave the money to Chandler
I
Parsons. So
remember, yeah. When
exactly,
he was
right?
decent.
When he was decent, yeah. So the Mavs are in that conversation of, well, we have to figure it out, or maybe Luca's just gonna leave. Right? He's only got a couple years, and then he has to look at this team and really make a decision. Yes, loyalty is a big deal in the NBA. Yes, it's important to be legit, and who doesn't want to be, a franchise icon, for an organization? Understandable, but also like this is the modern NBA. It's a cutthroat game. It's all about making sure that you can win. And when you're a talent like Luka, who has seen guys like Kevin Durant, who's seen guys like LeBron, who's seen Dirk himself go through the stories that they go through, I mean, does he want to be another Dirk? Does he want to be another Dwight Powell? Does he want to be another Dwight Howard? Like, there's so many names with different stories and careers that you can have options. But yeah, Dwight Powell was a poor name to pull up. But like, this is the
Brutal, man.
story of Luca right now. They have to
More like
figure it
Allen
out.
Iverson,
There you go.
Like right, he's gonna carry that team. He's gonna be box office. He's gonna be an absolute show, and yet they never put enough around him to get the show into the actual finals. And it's sad, man, because like again, like I mentioned, we had all those players out, but because we have Fred VanVleet and Chris Boucher, who Chris Boucher is probably what, like our 7th best player, right? Just because we had those 3 guys going, we were able to beat them. I think, he got 11, 5, and 3 from Maxi Kleba, 10 and 6 from Christian Wood, 15 points from Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, not major contributions from anybody out there, and it's just tough, man. It's tough to see because I'm a huge Luca guy, man. I think Luca's probably
Yeah.
the best talent the NBA's ever seen. Like pure just like basketball ability is off the charts, man. Maybe not athletic ability, like obviously John Morant, LeBron, Michael Jordan have all been better athletes, but just getting to his shot, playing at his own pace, setting guys up, the guy is just mythical how gifted he is.
Right? The way it all just comes together, and looking at this game specifically, it's the offensive rebounds for me that really was the turning back. 17-4, 25 points to 5 on the second chance. Thad had 3, OG had 4, Boucher had 5 offensive boards. That is what we like to see, right? The Raptors aren't the best three-point shooting team. We've proven that we kind of suck at shooting every once in a while, but you know what is good? When we can get the rebounds on those terrible shots. So a little bit of shining moment in this awful roughness, maybe?
Dude, we're like historically bad in half court offense and like historically bad at shooting. We're one of I think, the best teams in NBA history at generating more shot attempts than our opponent. Like, I
Yeah.
think our differential is the biggest differential in NBA history. I think we generate like I think an average of 10 or 12 more
I
shot
wouldn't be
attempts
surprised.
per game than
Yeah.
the opponent. And it's because it's necessary. And this is another example of that, right? Like we outshot them by 15. It was 88 to 73 in terms of shot attempts, and yet we only scored 3 more baskets, man, and only beat them by 5 points. So I mean, like as good as it is to outscore guys and outpace teams, when you look at historical evidence of the NBA, I think the other teams that are around us are like historically bad teams, like teams that like couldn't score and therefore needed to generate more opportunities, and that's kind of what we're looking at. But at least we win games, man. Like that's a good thing.
Well, this is also funny because it makes me think back to the times where you were constantly like, stop taking threes, just cut to the basket. A two is better than 0 points. And I'm like, especially when we're getting 10 more baskets a night, that's 20 points if we put them all in on dunks, that's for sure.
I think like that's the most frustrating part about watching the Raptors is that we do get all those attempts, but instead of using the 15 attempts on all 2 pointers and hitting half of them, we use them on all 3 pointers and hit one.
Yeah.
Like it's just brutal. And like, yeah, I get it. Three's better than two, but 3 points on one of 15 is not as good as 14 points on seven of 15. Like it's just simple math, guys. Simple math.
It's the
Let's
story
keep
of
it easy.
It's the story of Raptors fans, right? That's why the Cavaliers game on Monday was a nice little refresher. You know, Siakam back from
Oh.
his 10-game absence. We get an injection in the arm basically for our team. We end up being 8-2 at home now after that. Pretty impressive from the boys. And for Siakam to return 18 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Only took 14 shots, but shot, 7 of them in. Pretty great for a team that probably needed it.
I think this is really underscoring how Siakam has taken the next step in his, NBA star evolution, is that he has impacts on every single game he plays in without necessarily needing to score the ball or to be the guy who's facilitating and rebounding and doing everything that he can really impact the game just in like smaller ways and consistently. Like I felt like he had a massive impact throughout that entire game. But when you look at the stat sheet, like you said, 18 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, like we've seen 30-point triple doubles from this man. Like those aren't, his most dominant games, but you still felt like he was super, super effective.
Mhm.
Whereas in previous years, when he had a stat line like that, I mean, it's a decent stat line, but it felt like he was taking away from the rest of the team's offense and ability in order to get there. Whereas now he just does it so seamlessly, and it is so welcomed, man. He's really evolved, and it's a beautiful sight.
It's the comfort level as well, right? Being able to have every player around him just be happier, be more comfortable, knowing that Siakam's going to be out there doing what he's doing. I mean, you look at the Scotty Barnes post game interview after that. He's so pumped for Siakam to be back, talking, praising him up, the crazy options that he has with his spin moves and his shots. And it's like, yeah, and that's why Pascal has gotten into that MVP conversation, why he's gotten into that superstar conversation. He's not there. We need to preface this. In the same way that OG is not a top 20 player in the NBA, the guys are great. They're good. But there's just this level, this echelon that's true superstars get put on. And, Siakam is sniffing his way towards it. OG is still a little bit further back, that's for sure.
I mean, OG is definitely further back, but during that stint without Siakam, man, he was really showing
Oh, yeah.
why he's considered one of these top tier players, why he's always pushing there. His defense, I mean, has always been elite since he was a rookie, but this year it's really being recognized as being one of the best defenders in the NBA. Bar none, right? And then when he gets to have games where he drops 30 points or when he goes toe to toe with a Luka Doncic, it really brings that national spotlight and the United States spotlight onto him, and that's really tough to do, especially up here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And with Siakam, we really have just a
Excuse me.
player in front of him too dominant for him to kind of overstep. And I think that's really like the major issue that I see with our team is that we have too many mouths to feed. That we're too talented, that we need guys to fit into more like actually defined roles as opposed to just having an immense amount of talent and playing freely out there. I like that style of basketball, but I think there's something to be said about actually having a niche and then going to it. Austin Reeves for the Lakers, man. He is not the most talented player in the NBA.
True.
He probably on, 90% of the teams in this league can't actually crack the lineup. But with the Lakers, he actually looks pretty good. He's dropping 20 points here and there. It's because they're utilizing him for what his talents provide. And I think that the Raptors need to start focusing on that because we have a lot of versatile, unlimited, talented players. We've got Siakam, OG, Scotty, Achua, Otto, like Thad. We need defined shooters, defined players, but that's just my opinion. Hey,
And
man.
my favorite part is like I'm about to segue here, and you listed off a lot of players, and you didn't talk about Chris Boucher. And you think about the turn that Chris Boucher made at the All-Star break last season, realizing, you know what? I'm 28, 29. Boucher's old. Like nobody really
Yeah,
thinks
yeah,
it,
yeah.
but he's relatively old. He had that moment where he was like, I'm going to be the role player that I know I can be. And, the elevation in his game, the improvements, the positive points that we saw, through the roof. So you can look
Night and day.
internally to the Raptors themselves at players figuring out. You look at Gary, right? And Gary in his situation of needing to play for a bag, needing to play for a situation, being on the bench, not being on the bench, right? Like Gary's not just gonna accept that, right? That's the type of player he is. He's going to be hunting for his shots. I see his post game interview after dropping 35 points against the Pels, and he's just like, I do whatever I'm told to do. Yep, if that's how it's supposed to be. And I'm like, he looks a little bit more checked out now. He's not looking as, amped and as excited as he did a year ago to be part of a team and to be appreciated by a team. And, that kind of worries me a little bit internally.
Yeah, I think again it goes back to like the too many mouths to feed, man.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it's hard for these guys to take a step back. He was the only guy who brought energy. I mean, him and Pascal against the Pelicans,
Yeah.
we were quite atrocious. And I think that is honestly the best version of Gary Trent Jr. in the NBA. I think that is like what he's meant to do is to be a microwave scorer off the bench. I think he could be, Jamal Crawford won like what, like 5, 6 Man of the Year awards, was, a
True.
microwave scorer off the bench. Everybody knew that he had immense talent and handles and could score the ball with some of the best players in the NBA. His package, his bag was as deep as some of the best players in the NBA. Gary Trent is like that. His bag is that deep, but I think
Mhm.
that the other limitations around his game lead him to more of a Jamal Crawford type role. And if he could accept that, if he could come off the bench and score, 20, 25 points a game off the bench on a consistent basis, where like again, it was the perfect Trent game, 35 1-1, right? Like that is who he is. If he could average 25 2-2 for this team off the bench, I think we would be in a much better situation anyways.
I'm with you. Like I
You
totally
know?
agree. We've been talking all year long about Gary off the bench being a flamethrower, lighting up second units, right? But it's the mental game, right? We have to always remember that these are human beings who are constantly thinking about it. And for so long in the NBA, for the majority of players, if you're not a starter, you're not a good player. That's what a lot of people will think, right? That's the mentality that comes out. If you're not starting, you're not one of the best 5 players on your team. You're not an impactful player. But the thing is it's the modern NBA. There's so many ways to be important. Look at the Raptors bench mob, how important that was. That unit of pieces that did so much for our squad and barely ever saw the starting lineup, right? Like, you have to find your role, your piece for a team. And the Raptors have proved that they're a great organization at making sure the players understand their role and fitting in to create success. And Gary is in this weird situation where, like, if we can't get that to break through his mindset, it's looking more and more likely like he's going to be the trade asset, later this year.
Which is, it's fine if he's the trade asset, especially if he keeps playing like this, man. Because, since Nick Nurse called him out for his
Yeah.
defensive intensity, he has been absolutely fire. I mean, the first 14 games of the season, he's had 19 steals through those first 14 games. He had four multi steal games. And you know what's crazy is that through his 18 games this season, he hasn't had a single game without a steal. So like we're all
Wild.
talking about his deflections are down, his defensive impact is down. He's still literally getting a steal. He hasn't had a game without a steal. But in his last four, this man has been absolute fire. He's had, a 4 steal game, 2 3 steal games, and a single steal. He's had 11 steals in that span to bring his 30 steals in 18 games, getting close to that 2 steals a game like OG Anunoby,
Yep.
who leads the league. I'm pretty sure Gary Trent's in the top 15 in this league, which is wild that we talk about him not having the defensive impact that he did last year. I think, is it a case of like Raptors fans just really having this like overhype for our players? Because I think with all of our guys, it's kind of happened. With Gary Trent, he's not had the season that we've wanted him to have. With Precious Achua, before he got hurt, everyone was kind of disappointed in what he was doing, and he wasn't knocking down threes. And we were like, "Where's the after All-Star break Achua?" And Scotty Barnes even as well, or OG Anunoby for the last 4 years, right? Like, we want these guys to be superstars. We expect them to be superstars, and when they're not, we get on them immediately as Raptors fans.
For as good as the 2019 championship did for our organization, it might have done bad things for our fan base because the expectation has gone through the roof. The everyday fan who usually doesn't care about basketball is constantly showing up in threads going, how come Siakam has been trashed this season? Meanwhile, they have no idea that he's missed 10 games, right? Like, there's the difference in the true fan base, the people like us who actually care, who are constantly paying attention, and the basketball fans who are just like, we want a championship. We should be good. What's going on? Like, I swear I'm seeing this left and right, my guy. Left and right.
Hey, man, it's like when you get people in the United States reaching out to you about like, hey, what's going on with the Siakam and those Raptors? Again, Siakam missed 10 games. It's not on him, bro. Like, maybe you'd know that if you watched the game. But hey.
It's just the classic situation of the Raptors being outside of the spotlight, outside of the main media. Nobody really pays attention to us until they have to, right? Like, this is why we want OG to keep doing what he's doing so that he can be in the spotlight. So when the Defensive Player of the Year conversations come around, people aren't just pulling up the steals and being like, oh, OG's there, cool, and then moving past it, right? Like, we want people to be paying attention and understanding what our team can do. And, you make these comments about how the Cavs are considered a contender. They're on top of the league. Meanwhile, the Raptors are muddling. I'm sorry, we've taken them to town twice now, so who knows, really?
Absolutely, man. In the first game of the season and in that last game, we've been able to take it to Cleveland. I think that, the injury bug's gotten to us. We talked about it last week. And then there's been that disappointment from Scotty. Again, I think Scotty's been hurt all season. I don't think he's played a healthy game this year. I think he's fighting through injury, which makes sense that he wants to be out there, but nobody gives you credit for being out there injured. If you're going to be out there, you're out there, right? And so last year he averaged 15, 7.5, 3.5. This year he's averaging 14, 6, and 5. His shooting is down from 520 to 430. His 3 points up, that's good. But like, he just doesn't seem to be that energy guy that he was last year. And I think that goes back to the fact that, he's probably injured. He probably doesn't have the ability to get up there like he does or like he used to. And do you think we should just, give him a week off, let him come back? Because he had that great game against Atlanta, 28, 11, and 9, hurt for 2 games, and then has been, pretty poor the last 2 games to the point where, like, he didn't even play most of that second half against New Orleans. Like, Nick just sat him. So
The Scotty situation is tough. It's interesting, right? Because all you're gonna hear left and right is it's sophomore slump season. It's happening, blah blah blah. Happens to everybody. Look at Ja. Think about Ja's second year and the change that happens, right? This is what it takes to be in the NBA. You have to learn, right? Think about how Jabari Smith has been struggling, and you and I both know that he's going to be fine. He's going to be great in this NBA. There's always going to be hurdles that players face, and if Siakam is back now, and Scotty is actually dealing with an injury, and the injury bug is bothering him and not making him play at his potential, Scotty, man, relax. Go hang out, go stream, play 2K, we love it. It's totally fine. Like, get yourself healthy. It's great. Look, I understand the importance of wanting to play every game, to be a part of the team, to matter. But if you're going to have a performance like that because your body is limiting you, and then you're going to hear, the pundits online, the people online throwing at you, Scotty's going to have his own mental of just like, man, I played like garbage that game. Like, that's not positive. We don't want that. So go get healthy, feel better, come back when you're good, man.
And he's not imposing himself like he did last year, man. Like, last year he was so physical as a rookie, and this year he's bigger, yet isn't as imposing. He's not as aggressive on the glass. He's not as aggressive taking it to the rack. I think he's trying to play a little bit more of a finesse game to show everyone, the development that he made over the summer, which he needs to. I think Nick is trying to get him out of, right? Like Nick is really trying to get him to do what he did last year, man. Be a slasher, be a cutter, take it to the basket. Get those putback dunks. Be an aggressive rebounder, be an energy guy. You don't need to show everyone that you can do a step back three. Like that's gonna come. Like it'll be there in time. And I've loved to see those moments of him breaking down guys. And his handle looks tight, and his step back three looks pretty good. The fact that he's shooting almost 34% from three this year on an elevated amount of attempts, like, is just music to my ears. But I still want to see the old Scotty. I still want to see the energy Scotty. And again, if he's hurt, man, like if it's a foot injury, if it's an ankle, if it's a knee, he's had
Whatever.
injuries on both legs. I just want this man fully healthy, because at the end of the day, as much as I love me a Siakam, as much as I love me an OG Anunoby, they don't have the potential, at least from what he showed in his rookie season, as a
True.
Scotty Barnes. So yeah, he's gonna take us to our next championship, whether we like it or not, man. It's gotta be
uh,
Scotty, or it's gonna
oh,
be, a player to be named in the future out of the draft. So
absolutely, and we want to see it from Scotty, right? Like, obviously, he's been left open a lot from three. Like, I think the combination of his regular scoring down and his 3-point shooting going up is kind of like the mean working together, right? But he has been left open, and every once in a while, he knocks down a shot, and I go, okay, Scotty, like, that's the 3-pointer I want to see. But again, it's a little too much. The step back's cool. We know you can kind of do it, but keep working on it. And then in 5 years, when people don't think you can do that, start knocking it down on people, right? Like, there's a mind game that you kind of got to play in the NBA right now. What's important to develop your game? What's not important to develop your game? And as long as you don't Ben Simmons it, right? As long as you come into the league and try to improve, that's what we're looking for Scotty. So, prayers
I
up
think
for
he
the
is.
man. Hopefully we can see more positivity coming out of him the rest of the season.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And we're playing the Nets, we're playing the Magic, we're playing the Celtics, and we're playing the Lakers. Scotty typically does have success against the Nets, so hopefully, this game will then propel him into a great week where he can dominate the Magic, dominate the Celtics on Monday, and then dominate the Lakers. His first, truly great NBA game was against those Boston Celtics. So, hey, man, I would be so here for it.
Now the Nets tonight, though, what a game! Unfortunately for the Nets, they're not going to have the greatest shooter in the NBA right now in Utah Watanabe. He's still out injured, but I've heard a rumor that Bubba Warren is coming back tonight after almost 2 years. TJ Warren is going to play an NBA game, so who knows, man? That could be the spark that the Nets need, and he could be the shooter, but hopefully not.
Bro,
But crazy rumor.
the sparks that the Nets needed have already came. Kevin Durant has been playing on God mode. He has been unbelievable. It might be his second best season ever so far, 2014 notwithstanding. He's just like, that was his best season,
Yeah.
but this year he's been phenomenal. The guy has been, like, since the firing of Steve Nash, has been otherworldly. Has looked like the Kevin Durant that people say is the best player in the NBA, and I'm all here for him, man. If Kevin Durant's gonna play like that, I'm all here for it, especially having
Right?
him on my fantasy team, man.
He's leading the league in points scored this season. He's put up 38, 6, and 6 in his last 4 games on 60, 45, 90. The guy has been unreal. And you know what the crazy part? He's like 7th or 8th on the MVP ladder. Like, we are witnessing some pretty incredible moments this season from some fantastic players. And for Kevin Durant, arguably one of the greatest shooters in the history of the game, to be playing as well as he is and not even be in a top 5 MVP case, that's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, like, Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, is definitely ahead of him. You got Luka Doncic, who, like, I don't care that they're like 10th or whatever, or ninth. I don't care, man. He is otherworldly. He deserves to be in the MVP conversation. Then Jason Tatum doing what he's doing, and Giannis, like, those are your top four right there. It's really hard to even get a sniff of the top five, especially when you got Denver top two seed in the West. You got, Phoenix. So you got Jokic and Booker. Like, it's a tough race out
And
here.
shout
But it
out to
was
Booker
last year
too.
too, man.
shout out to Booker, that 51-point performance in 3 quarters the other night. Like, the guy is making his case for relevancy, which is important when you consider that Chris Paul is slowly aging out in that team.
Yeah, Devin Booker will never be that elite guy for me. I think that he's the type of superstar that hits that elite category, but is never like your number one in it. Paul George is a great example because he's starting to get to the back end of his career. He's still an elite guy, but he's always been, in
Yeah,
that, top tier elite. When you think about 15 players in the NBA, Paul George has always been in those 15 players, but he's always, 15, 14, 13. He's never, 4,
he's outside
3.
the top 10 usually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
typically. And
I get what you're
that's how I
saying.
see Booker. Booker will never be a top 5 guy. He'll never ever be a top 5 guy. Which
He's
is
looking
he's
at
still phenomenal,
he's
like
looking at Damian Lillard-esque type of character, right? So it's an interesting situation. And the Suns are doing good. They're 15-6. They're top of the West right now. So you can't really complain about them. But again, it's the West, right? 15-6 is only 5 games out of the playoffs. So,
above the bottom. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. So we're really interested to see where this season is going to go. There's so many storylines, so many players that are showing up, but with the Raptors specifically, we're just happy to see the injury woes maybe end. I joke about the fact that OG's been the one healthy player on this team considering the past that we've dealt with, but we're hoping for more success from this Raptors squad in the weeks to come.
One thing that I'm going to say about the Raptors before we can move on is I'm totally willing to tank this season and throw away Siakam for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there as a Raptors fan. I think, yes, we're trading away a guy like DeRozan who bleeds for the Toronto Raptors, but we're bringing in a Toronto native. So, like, hey, he was born to bleed for the Raptors, right? We
Every
got this.
every week there will be a Shea plug from Matt trying to get him to the squad. Even though OKC's doing all right, they're 9-13, they're relevant, they're doing okay.
Bruh, with Siakam, they'd be even more relevant. Give us Shea.
Ah man, what I wouldn't give to have a Shea on our team, he would fit perfectly. But until it
I'll give
happens,
you
man, it's
Siakam and Fred VanVleet. How about that?
oh my gosh, Matt's
Yeah,
crazy. I mean,
I'm out here.
OKC should take that trade if you're OKC. But I mean, who knows? They're in a different timeline.
Bro,
But
give us Pukashevsky and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm in.
Matt's just gonna be
I'm Messiah. I'm on the
just gonna
phone
be
right now.
tweeting trades for Shea all season long, constantly trying to make it happen. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me and the Raptors this week. Nothing else that I need to add in.
All right, cool, man. Let's look around the league, man, because there's still some really good stories. We've talked about a few in Phoenix and in Dallas, but I think the craziest thing is that the Boston Celtics have been so good. As a Raptors fan, it sucks that we have to talk about them because they are the best team in the NBA. But
Yeah,
without Ime Udoka, they have been distraction proof. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are definitely the best two players on a team tandem by far. And Jason Tatum has really ascended into like full superstar top
absolutely.
5 category player.
And like
So
the
it's
the
brutal.
thing, the big thing for that as well is looking at that game against Miami the other night. There was a funny clip that I saw early this morning where basically Tatum's at 49 points, and I forget one of the guys goes in to screen him and is trying to get the ball, and Tatum's just like waves off. He's like, no, and he's like joking with Kyle Lowry, and Kyle makes a comment, and Tatum looks at him. He's like, I already got 50 this season, so I'm not worried. That's superstardom. Tatum has hit that point. He's comfortably knows what's up. And yeah, the Celtics are destroying the league, man. 18-4. They were 14-4 last week. They're on that 5-game win streak. It looks like it's going to be a lot to stop this team right now. And with Al Horford signing a $20 million extension, getting 2 extra years is pretty great for a team that fell apart when he left only a few seasons ago. So Celtics fans, looks like your team is making the right decisions. And Joe Mazzulla is on pace for Coach of the Year. Like, you look at the Jazz and the Suns and what they've done in the past few years, Boston keeps it up. I can't see anybody else taking it away from him.
Dude, he's been great. They have been fantastic. The scariest part about them too is that their number one defense from last year hasn't even showed up yet.
Yeah,
They've been the best offensive team in the NBA, which is
ever.
just
The
yeah,
best offensive team potentially ever.
they were one of the best defensive teams potentially ever last year, and they have the same personnel. So it's a scary thought, man. It's a really scary thought with the Boston Celtics. They probably should be the front runners at this point, but I'm still gonna give it to my boy in Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks because Chris Middleton's coming back. Giannis is still, that dude. He is still that number one player in the NBA. I don't care, Luka, Tatum, those guys are still that notch below. So we'll see what happens, man. But the Eastern Conference at the top is looking like the conference that's going to take it home. That Western Conference is wide open. Like anybody could have that one.
Absolutely, and like there's people going against Giannis, and they're like, oh, Chris Middleton's going to come back. That's going to make things worse for him. He's not even the best defender on his team. Brook Lopez is right now, and I'm like, guys, if you take Giannis off of that team, Brook isn't as impactful as he is. Chris would have to come back and do way too much. Like, there's so many people that don't think about it. Giannis is such a stud. He's such a beast. He casually puts up 30 points any night that he wants because if he looks down the court, he realizes that at least 5 guys on the other team are probably smaller than him. It's pretty great, right? Like
Unless
Giannis
he's playing Joel Embiid, that is it. That is
right,
the only man
the
in the NBA bigger than him.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Karl Anthony Towns in the T-Wolves, but I mean, he's going to be out. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with an injury, and it looks like the T-Wolves might actually just be imploding. So you might be right, man. The East is going to run through it this year.
Yo, man, those T-Wolves. I'm so glad I never really got on board with them. I'm so glad that I was like, okay, maybe begrudgingly I'll give them a 45 win, 50 win total. Yeah, man. Dude, it's so funny because like everything that they were talking about why they would work so well is the reason why they don't work at all. Is because their deficiencies are too pronounced that the other one cannot make up for it. And the other one is not good enough in those areas the other one is deficient to make up for it. It's just so bad. Karl Anthony Towns cannot spread the floor enough to save for Gobert's offense, and Gobert's defense cannot save for Karl Anthony Towns' lack of defense. And it is just hilarious to watch. I'm
And
definitely loving it.
and everybody praising, Anthony Edwards going off, having a huge night with Cat Don. It's like, yeah, he's got more space. He can drive to the basket. There's less big mans on the floor. Of course he's gonna have a sick night. Don't get excited about this, people. Like it's chaos out in Minnesota right now. I feel bad for jumping on the train that I did because I left 3 stations ago.
They're literally their best option at this point is to trade Rudy Gobert and get anything back for him. Like literally, give us Jared Vanderbilt back, please.
But I mean,
Well, keep you Gobert back, don't just Jared Vanderbilt.
just Jared, yeah. And I mean, the Jazz, maybe they consider it. They're 13-11 now. They are relevant, but also, yeah, they want to tank, but maybe they don't. Like, it's such an interesting time in the West. There's so many teams that are figuring it out, but also like not figuring it out. Like, it is a crapshoot in the Western Conference right now.
Absolutely, man. It's a good time though to be an NBA fan, and Utah. We expected them to drop back down to earth. Lauri Markkanen can only play at this MVP level for so long. Um, Again, he's a good player, and he might be an all-star, but he's not an MVP. And this team is definitely looking for Victor Wembanyama. Let's see if their start though really kind of pulls them out of that sweepstakes because teams like the Spurs, teams like Houston, Orlando, Detroit, like those teams are gunning for Victor and have a pretty darn good shot at it.
And if you're any tanking team, you're looking at this Boston Celtics team who had a war chest of assets that did some things with them, but kind of also didn't do anything with them, and is now relevant with a good star team. So it's proven, you can be not garbage, but not good for a few years, and if you pick right, you can end up with success.
Bro, for years, people were panning Danny Ainge for not using any of the assets that he got in that Brooklyn trade to actually go out and get stars.
Yep.
And look what he did with the 2 third overall picks. He got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Okay, maybe he didn't trade for stars, but he drafted 2. So
right?
hey,
you got the best duo in the NBA right now through the draft. That's
25 and 24 years old, man. These guys are going to be dominant for the next 8 years like this, at least. And so they're locked up as a franchise.
This is why we're praying as Raptors fans to be relevant, because if Boston's going to be this good, we hope that we at least are good enough to smack them down a couple of times. That's at least my dream over here. That's what I'm going for.
It's almost annoying because like it's almost like we almost want to be bad so that we can get like a Scotty Barnes compliment. But hey, man, that's what we're hoping OG is. That's what we're Siakam already is, and hopefully Barnes just kind of develops into that lead dog eventually.
That's the dream, right? But looking across the league, other conversations, we could talk about Norm Powell, ex-Raptor, had an amazing fourth quarter against the Blazers. Now, as Matt reminded me, it was the Blazers with nobody on it. Anthony Simons doing great, but the man put up 22
Not a defensive
points.
stud by any
20,
means.
22 points to lead a comeback in the fourth quarter, Matt. Only took 9 shots, put 7 of them in. I got to shout out our ex-Raptors when we get the opportunity. So, shout
Look,
out Norm.
man, I love Norm Powell, but like that is Norm's great game every 10, every 20. Like he's a good player, but he's not a needle mover. Them Clippers, man, they're actually doing pretty well considering no Kawhi.
No?
It's pretty nice to see for them, but again, they're not a threat in the Western Conference. Nobody in the Western Conference, I feel, is like a real threat to the title, like to a Boston or to a Milwaukee. It's whoever's going to get there, and then whoever gets there is going to have a chance, obviously, because they're there. I feel like that was what happened with Golden State, right? Like nobody in the West was really that prolific last year besides Phoenix, and I think Phoenix beat up on a lot of bad teams in the Western Conference. I think the conference was worse than we actually thought it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then Golden State gets through. They're playing a Boston team that probably shouldn't have gotten through, who's a little bit too young, who's not been there, and they use their experience to win. It was not because they were definitely the best team in the NBA last year. In fact, I would argue that there was 3 teams that were better than them in the NBA last year. But yeah, I think that's going to be a similar case this year for the West and the East, and hopefully the East takes it home, man, because like the Raps, the Cavs, the 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, like that's 6 teams right there that all have like superstar quality players on them.
Really.
Like upper echelon, high tier quality. And like the Pacers are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference right now. So Tyrese Halliburton, man, gotta shout that man out.
I mean, I'm a Pacers fan. I mentioned it a few weeks ago, but they're the most Canadian team in the NBA. They got 5 Canadian players, so I'm always rooting for the Pacers. But if I can take it back to the West for a second, because one team that we haven't really talked about or mentioned almost at all this season is the Nuggets. The Nuggets are quietly 14-7, sitting second in the Western Conference. Jokic is doing what he's doing. Jamal Murray has been playing great. Aaron Gordon has quietly been a great piece for this team. Like, the Nuggets might be here to stay, and as a fan over here, I'm pretty amped for that squad.
Man, no, they're definitely here to stay. I think Michael Porter Jr. has been one of the best spot up shooters this season.
Yep.
Aaron Gordon's been fantastic in transition and aggressive on the glass. He's again, I think with the Draymond Green being the superstar that he is, quote unquote, without actually having to have any superstar quality talent, is allowing a lot of guys in this league to realize, hey, I can still get a bag. I can still be a part of a legacy and a huge run if I just do the little things. And Aaron Gordon is doing the little things for this team. And if he can continue to do that all year with Nikola Jokic playing the way he is, with Jamal Murray, finally starting to regain his final form from, years past, and Michael Porter Jr. being, just a dead-eye shooter, they've got a really good chance of coming out of this Western Conference, man. And in Nikola Jokic, after back-to-back MVPs, might be able to shut down the not a winning player narrative like Giannis did after his back-to-back MVPs. And I'd love to see it, man, because I think he takes way too much slack from, some media pundits who don't actually watch a ton of Nuggets games and realize how important he is to their winning. Yes, he is not the most imposing big man the NBA's ever seen. No, he is not, the best athlete, but man, does that man know basketball, and he knows how to get his players into the right situations to win. And that's what you got. That's what you want, man. That's what you want out of any player.
I still find it hilarious of the way people treat Jokic when it's almost unanimously considered that if you could take anyone in the NBA and put him beside Steph Curry and have the best fit, it would be Nikola Jokic. The two of them would destroy the league, for example. But yeah, man, Nuggets look legit. You know, your comment about Aaron Gordon, I really like though, because it kind of brings us full circle to when we were talking about the Raptors and talking about how players are finding their roles. Like, no longer are we in the NBA where you need to put up 25 points a night to secure a bag, to get money, right? There is way more ways to play this game, and there's so many ways to be impactful. And so if more players could do what Aaron Gordon's doing, the talent level of the league raises, because we don't have people breaking shots left and right. We have good, solid basketball being played, and that's what I want as a fan. So
the shooters are going to shoot, and you know the rebounders are going to rebound, and that's what you need, right? Defenders defend. But hey, man, we'll see. We'll see what happens for the rest of the NBA season. I really feel bad for Luka because I feel like he's going to carry this team into the 6th seed and not going to get a sniff of the MVP conversation after being just an otherworldly player. Like, this man's averaging 34, 9, and 9. Like, are we even like? I get James Harden averaged 36, but he did not average 9 and 9. Okay, he averaged like 4 and 5.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I watched a video the other day talking about like percentages and like historical significance of what Luka's doing and like the comparisons to like historically great players. It's all like big men. It's all guys who don't take the shots that he's taking, guys like forcing their way into the paint the way that they do. So, you know, all credit for Luka playing the way that he's been playing. Considering the team is, what are they?
10 and 11?
10 and 11. They're outside of the playoffs. Now, don't freak out because they were 14 and 16 last year before making their way to the Western Conference Finals run. But, as I mentioned to Matt, you know, that was out of shape Luka. That was not playing great Luka. That was having, you know, Brunson with them playing that he's done. This is a scarier situation.
They need to make a move. They definitely need to make a move.
Probably. It's tough to say, but, you know, Christian Wood, good player. He allows them to have the opportunity to have somebody else who can create their own shot, but he's not a number 2. He's probably not a number 3. Is he a number 4?
Man. I think he's a 4. I think he's a 4 and Spencer Dinwiddie's a 5. They've got a 4 and they've got a 5. They need a 2 and they need a 3. They need, like, all the Mavs fans and Lakers fans want OG Anunoby. What are you guys going to trade us for OG Anunoby? Like, who do you have to offer us? Dorian Finney-Smith? Kendrick Nunn? Russell Westbrook? Like, these aren't players that we're taking back. Reggie Bullock? Tim Hardaway Jr.? No, thank you. We'll keep OG Anunoby, and
right?
you can talk to us next year.
And yes, you can offer us picks all you want. And you can say, look, we'll give you this pick. It could be as good as OG Anunoby. And I can be like, okay, but I could also just have OG Anunoby. Why do I need the potential pick, right? Like, it's chaos in the NBA. That's just how it is. Everyone's looking for a better way to make their team successful. And, you know, when you're at the bottom, you kind of got to scrape the barrel to try to get stuff from these succeeding teams. And the Raptors are not a team that has proven that you can fleece in the past.
Bro, you can take Malachi Flynn. Sorry, I couldn't do it like that.
All good. That's the classic Malachi situation. But I think that's pretty much good for this week, man. If there's anything else that you want to add in before we talk into predictions?
Nah, man, I'm good to go with the predictions. You know, I'm gonna jump off of the NBA this week. I'm gonna go into the NFL. We've not been talking about the NFL, even though it's been a fire season. It's a great lineup this week, but I'm gonna stay away from some of the premier games. I'm gonna go with a couple upsets here. I'm gonna go the Jets over Minnesota. Okay. I think Mike White is not gonna turn into a pumpkin. He's gonna beat the Minnesota Vikings, and we're gonna have this huge controversy over Zach Wilson. I think the Commanders are gonna beat the Giants because Tyler Heineke's actually competent as opposed to Carson Wentz, apparently. And I don't believe in Daniel Jones. I do believe in Saquon Barkley, but I don't believe in Daniel Jones. And then I'm going to take my Steelers over the Atlanta Falcons. I think, you know, the Steelers have been kind of on a little bit of a roll here. They've been getting it going, and they don't have losing seasons under Mike Tomlin, so they need to get wins somewhere, and Atlanta's a good win for them. So I got 3 predictions in there. Hopefully they all hit.
Some solid choices.
My 0-3 week last week. 3 predictions.
Positivity. I will still stand by it. The Commanders have the worst name in the NFL for a team. Still disappointed in that decision over there, but you know, moving on. You know, I'm gonna put a little something out there. So I'm looking at KD and I'm looking at this absolutely epic season that he's putting on, and he's going up against the Raptors tonight. And historically, you know, we're either going to do really well against a player of KD's caliber or really poorly. So he's probably going to put up 30 points tonight, maybe 6 rebounds, 8 assists kind of thing. but we're still getting the W. It won't be enough. I believe in the Raptors squad.
Amen. I'm hoping for it. I'm here for it because I want us to beat the Nets for sure. Love to start off a good win for the week.
It's always nice to get a W to start the week, my friend. But
Right.
anything else, or shall we roll out?
Nah, man. I'm good. You're good.
Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Board Sports. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and check out theboardsports.net for new episodes and blog posts.
And we'll talk to you next time.